Hello and welcome back to the Crime Reel. I've recently been contacted by the family of Elizabeth Omotara Santos, who are desperately looking for answers concerning Elizabeth's death in August of 2020. They have so many questions which have been left unanswered, so for today's true crime narration, we shall be looking at the story of Elizabeth Santos. Elizabeth was born in 1983 and grew up in Florida. She was the second oldest of 4 siblings. She briefly attended Florida International University and had a long-standing relationship with a man by the name of Dustin Kirpius. When she ended this relationship, after they had been together for over 10 years, she decided to take a trip away to give her a chance to clear her head. She went to visit a good friend of hers, Lizette Hoagland Hall, who lived on the other side of America in Wasilla, Alaska, which is fairly close to Anchorage. Elizabeth loved to travel and particularly enjoyed visiting Alaska as she had made many friends there over the years. Lizette had a house that she shared with her 22-year-old son, Desmond Marcus Hall, where Elizabeth stayed during her trip. Elizabeth's family have already made a couple of videos about what happened on the 8th of August 2020, so I'll be using this footage to explain the case far better than I can describe. If, like me, you feel moved by the story and would like to help, there are some ideas of how to do this at the end of today's video. So back to 8th of August 2020. The first video, known as Deep Dive 1, starts as the Anchorage Police Department were called to attend Lizette's house following reports of an altercation there.
The fight between Lizette Hoagland Hall and Elizabeth Santos began at around 6 a.m. on the morning of August 8th, 2020. Lizette admits to losing the fight and falling hard on the first floor of her home as a result of the altercation. Afterward, Lizette says that she and her adult son, Desmond Marcus Hall, ran upstairs to the second level of the home to hide in a bathroom to call 911. During her interrogation, Lizette claims that Elizabeth was unharmed and uninjured prior to the arrival of the patrol officers. The arrival of the cops. According to the police report, APD patrol officers Yoon and Estrella arrived on the scene at the residence of Lizette Hoagland Hall at approximately 6:16 a.m. Once on the scene, both patrol officers seemed confused about the circumstance as Elizabeth was incoherent, moving erratically, had occasionally slurred speech, was mumbling, was unable to stand, and was unable to tell the officers exactly about what happened to her. The officers assumed the behavior probably stemmed from something she consumed. They noted that Elizabeth was dressed only in an open robe on the staircase. The officers claimed that Elizabeth's wounds didn't seem serious, although documentation shows that the robe she was wearing was saturated in blood. Elizabeth appeared to be losing consciousness as time passed, but she was able to mumble a few words and even spell out her first name when the officers continued to ask her what happened.
Elizabeth.
The officers made note of injuries, such as bruising and scratches on Lizette's face that stemmed from her recent fight with Elizabeth. The officers mentioned how the surroundings were messy, with knocked-over plants. Officer Estrella mentions how at one point she saw Lizette wipe up some of Elizabeth's blood that was on the floor. Also, Lizette whispered to the officer that it was Elizabeth who supposedly caused much of the mess around her house. At 6:42 a.m., Elizabeth was handcuffed.
Relax. Okay, let's go.
Elizabeth, get up.
Okay, we're just gonna walk down the stairs. Walk it over here. So. Ma'am, stop. Come on, we're trying to help you. Yeah, over here.
At 6:46 a.m., the paramedics arrived, and Elizabeth was taken into the ambulance. The arrival of the paramedics at this time was corroborated by a neighbor later in the day during a neighborhood canvass. The neighbor across the street woke up and saw the ambulance outside of her window. Another neighbor mentioned seeing Elizabeth being wheeled out and placed into the ambulance a few moments later.
Somebody's dead. We're not sure what the circumstances are. We're investigating that.
Well, my phone rang at 6:30. About the time things were going on. And I always look out when I get up and saw the 2 police cars out here, nobody in them. And about that time, the ambulance came around the corner, and I went to my other bedroom to see how far it went, and it stopped by their house, obviously. And I just stood there and watched to see what was going on, and saw them bring somebody out on the gurney, and the cops came back.
The ambulance report mentions Elizabeth's last words were the name of the hospital she wanted to go to before permanently losing consciousness. At 7:20 a.m., Elizabeth went into cardiac arrest. The paramedics began transport to the hospital at 7:23 a.m. The cops left the scene without taking Lizette Hoagland Hall and her son, Desmond Hall, into police custody, so the only 2 suspects were left alone and unsupervised at an active crime scene, and with Elizabeth's iPhone that Lizette somehow was able to unlock. The ambulance made it to the hospital by 7:36 a.m., where Elizabeth was rushed into emergency surgery. Reports mention that the surgeons were very perplexed about the situation and the extent of the injuries, especially when it came to how Elizabeth could have lost so much blood. Originally, the hospital was going on the narrative provided by Lizette, but the doctors could tell that the story wasn't adding up. The APD was called by the hospital at 7:50 a.m. and informed them that Elizabeth had multiple stab wounds to her legs and abdomen and was in critical condition. At 7:56 a.m., the same 2 patrol officers, Yoon and Estrella, were dispatched and told to return back to the scene in order to take Lizette and Desmond into custody. There was no body cam footage, so not even the interrogating officer was able to determine whether or not Lizette and Desmond changed their clothing before the patrol officers returned to the scene. The cops return. Between the departure of the 2 patrol officers and the time of their eventual return, at approximately 8:20 a.m., almost 1 hour had passed. Lizette later admitted to making multiple phone calls during this period, the last of which was to Elizabeth's sister, Nikki, down in Miami, from Elizabeth's iPhone. When answering the phone, Nikki thought it was Elizabeth calling, so was quite surprised to hear a belligerent woman yelling, "Your sister Elizabeth owes me money. She has some holes in her. Your sister owes me money. The paramedics left with her a while ago. She has holes in her. Elizabeth owes me some money." Wait, now the cops are back. This was how the family first found out about the overall situation. With Nikki still on the phone, the patrol officers returned to Lizette's home. They knocked on the door and explained to Lizette that Elizabeth was in emergency surgery and was not doing well. The officers informed Lizette that both she and her son Desmond would have to be taken down to the APD police station to give statements about what really happened. The report mentions that both Lizette and her son Desmond were handcuffed, but video and audio evidence shows otherwise. Lizette and Desmond were driven to the police station in separate cars and interviewed in separate rooms upon arrival. The police station. Beginning at 10:30 a.m., Lizette was interviewed by Officer Jason DeVille. During her statement, Lizette made claims that Elizabeth had been acting odd the past few days while staying with her. She told the interviewing officer the outlandish story about the fight, running to hide and call 911 with her son, and then seeing Elizabeth's injuries for the first time when the patrol officers arrived on the scene. Lizette later described the fight with Elizabeth in more detail to Officer DeVille.
And I just started saying, "Desmond, call 911, and I ran upstairs.
Where was Desmond at? Is he upstairs or downstairs?
He was downstairs, but I don't know if he was in the bathroom or in his bedroom.
So downstairs?
Yes,
Okay.
he was downstairs. And so I ran upstairs.
So wait a minute. So I just want to go back. I'm kind of like a detail-oriented guy. So as you're on your back and she's trying to claw you, bite you, how are you defending yourself?
I'm just kind of like blocking.
So you have your hands in front of your face
Yeah,
right now.
I'm like
hands
blocking,
up, just blocking.
like, yeah.
Okay.
Just blocking.
And then does she eventually stop?
No, I mean, I guess not. Only because I like got away from her
How
and
did you
ran
get away from
upstairs. Like I just kind of like scooted my way and ran upstairs and I told my son, call 911, and then he brought his phone. I didn't even call from my own phone. My son, I thought maybe my son called, but instead he brought his phone upstairs, and he and I hid, and
Where'd you hide at?
in my bedroom. We locked the door, and so my bathroom has 2 doors. It goes like this, 2 doors, and she's like banging on the doors.
So you're in the bathroom.
No, it's connected. The bathroom is connected
To
my bedroom
So you're hiding in your bedroom.
with the doors locked.
Okay.
Me and my son are both in the bedroom with the doors locked.
Okay.
And we hear her in the kitchen. We hear her out there saying stuff, moaning.
What does she say?
Moaning. It sounds like it's not really like you can hear it. It's more like a. So it's like. That's my best impression.
Okay.
I don't.
How long
know
were you
what-
guys in there?
Until the police came. Until we heard the doorbell.
And who answered the door?
I did. I ran downstairs.
So you did?
Yeah.
Where was
Desmond?
no, where was
Tara.
Elizabeth?
Oh, yeah. Her middle name is Tara. Sorry. That's what we
Alright.
call her, Tara.
Yeah. So where was Elizabeth?
She was upstairs.
So you actually have to pass her in order to go?
No, I didn't.
Did you see her?
I didn't. She was somewhere. So there's the living room and there's the kitchen and there's like. I just knew that I got to get the police in there, and so I think I just went. Like, I don't really recall seeing her. I know she was upstairs though. I know she was because I could hear her the whole time. It was just like the whole like trying to get in, trying to get back in each of the doors, trying to get in, and we were like, I was like, don't.
Is she banging on the doors, trying to open the door?
It felt like she was about to bust open the doors, right?
Okay, so it was like loud bangs trying to get in?
Yeah, like boom, boom.
Lizette claims that Elizabeth had been banging and screaming at her locked bedroom door at the time of the 911 call, but none of these described noises could be heard in the background during the 911 call. Lizette further describes how Elizabeth had no injuries prior to the arrival of the patrol officers.
Actually, let's back up. So when Elizabeth comes back inside the house, you go downstairs, you see her.
Yeah,
Is she injured at all?
No.
No, she has no injuries?
No.
Okay, so during this whole fight, you're basically trying to just block. You're able to slip upstairs. You and Desmond go upstairs, you hide in your room.
I didn't.
Did you see her again?
I did not see her until the cops got there with all that stuff, that blood and stuff.
Okay, so you don't know how she got all that?
That did not happen until after I called 911, because when I was in the hallway and she was standing there, and then I said, you gotta go to the hospital, and she was like, okay. There was nothing.
Lizette then describes to Officer DeVille the main knife that Elizabeth supposedly used to stab herself repeatedly and where it may be located.
Happened, I'm like, and she's like, I'm really sorry. In fact, when they came to the door and knocked on the door, I'm like, Nikki, the police are here. And then she's like, then that starts to freak her out.
So wait. So was this the first time you called? So when you called the police the first time, whose phone were you on?
Desmond's. I only called the police one time.
Oh, okay. But when
No.
you're calling Nikki, then you said the police are at my door again?
Yeah, they came back.
Oh, okay, so they came
So
back.
they came back, and so I'm like, the police are back here again. And so she's like, well, it freaks her out. She's like, wait a minute, what, is she okay? Is she okay? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
She just got taken to the hospital. Just, I'm.
Okay.
I don't even know.
So were you able to clean up your house at all?
No.
No. Did you
The only thing I had cleaned up and it was in front of the police officer too, was the blood, the little blood that she had left in 2 spots, because I was
Upstairs,
like, oh my God,
downstairs?
that's gonna stain.
Upstairs, downstairs?
Upstairs.
Okay.
It was just 2 spots.
Okay, did you see anything? You said when you came out you saw blood and stuff. Did you see anything in your house that might have caused that? Any type of object?
I saw a knife.
Okay, so you did see a knife?
But I didn't do anything because I was too busy on the phone.
Okay, where was the knife?
Upstairs in the living room.
Where at?
Next to the couch. I want to say that the long one, not the love seat.
Next to the long couch on the floor?
Or on it. I somewhere around there. I know I saw a knife and I was like, that must have been what she was doing.
Did you, when you looked at the knife, did you see any blood or anything on it?
No, I didn't really look at it that closely. I was too busy, like, telling her boyfriend, like, what am I supposed to do with this dog? I didn't sign up for,
What type of knife is this?
It's just like it's either a steak knife or it was like the next size up. Like, like it's one or the other. Like,
so you're saying a steak, when you saw the knife, is it your knife?
It is my knife, but like there's a steak knife or there's one that's like
a little bit larger?
Larger. Or it's one of the two. I don't know which one it was. I honestly didn't, I saw it and I knew that was what she was probably using, but I didn't think it was.
What color is the handle?
It's gray and black.
So gray and black handle?
Yes.
Okay. And a silver blade?
Yes.
Okay.
At 10:33 a.m., over in the next interrogation room, Desmond Hall was being interviewed by Detective Bell. Detective Bell explains to Desmond that Elizabeth's injuries are very serious and that the situation has escalated. Bell explains to him that he and his mother Lizette are the only witnesses that could explain what happened to Elizabeth.
So she's got some injuries. She's at the hospital, and so things kind of changed from when the police first got there to now, and she has some pretty serious injuries. So, yeah, so that's why we got called. That's why it's making a little bit bigger deal than what it originally saw. And there may very well be an explanation for it, but that's what we have to try to figure out, because we can't talk to her right now. She's in surgery.
Okay.
All right? And so that's why you guys are here. You guys are the only ones that could provide any information, because she can't talk right now. All right? She may, when we can't talk to her, she may clear it all up, but until then, you guys are all we have. All right?
Rather than explaining what happened, Desmond asks for an attorney, and to date, has never made an official statement on what happened. At 12:48 p.m., Officer DeVille returned to Lizette's interrogation room and informs her of Elizabeth's death at the hospital. Keep in mind that previously Lizette said that Elizabeth was uninjured prior to the arrival of the patrol officers, but Lizette's story changes once she learns about the death.
Desmond and I were hiding in the room. I said I saw blood, but we were hiding. I couldn't have my son and I out there.
So is this after the police came or right before?
I called you guys after this happened. And then I heard her in the kitchen. And then I heard moaning and I heard the talking and stuff, but I was like, baby, we're staying in here till the cops come. I heard her banging, like I told you, it was like, she was like, on my drawers, but I was like, no, like, I was like, even like, up until they rang the door, I was like, I had the door locked, but I didn't want her to like push in through the door. They're not that sturdy of doors, so I just...
At 2:17 p.m., when a search warrant had been issued and fingerprints, clothing, photos, and DNA swabs were being taken from Desmond and Lizette, Officer DeVille receives a call from crime scene investigators at Lizette's residence. Officer DeVille informs them of the knife that Lizette described and where it may be according to her story.
Hey, it's DeVille. What's up? No. No, they do not. The knife involved is most likely it's inside, we think it's inside the residence, upstairs, by the, either on the long couch, it's like a large, or it's like a steak knife or a little bit larger with like maybe a gray and black handle or something. It should be the same knives that are in the kitchen. It's the same, yeah, where are you guys at right now? Oh, okay. Yeah, so that is where the knife should be. Because that's the only knife that, as far as the, our complainant slash suspect, she walked out when everyone was gone. She actually saw a knife by the long couch and went upstairs. It's like a steak knife, maybe. All right, anything else? All right.
Later that afternoon, both Lizette and Desmond were freed from police custody, despite Lizette's felonious criminal history, which contains violent assaults. Neither Lizette Hogland Hall nor her son Desmond Hall were ever charged. Inconsistent stories and versions of the events. Following the day of Elizabeth's death, strange stories began to arise that were previously never heard before, including a story from her ex-boyfriend in which she had supposedly handled a knife while having an altercation with him. However, her ex-boyfriend's own sister commented that his memory can't necessarily be trusted since he is very forgetful as a result of his epilepsy and occasional seizures. Lizette claims that Elizabeth had been acting erratic in the days leading up to her death, but various friends of Elizabeth, including the ones mentioned in the police reports, dispute this. They all describe her as nonviolent and a non-drug user. They all said that Elizabeth was in a good mood and behaving normally. They all described Lizette's description of Elizabeth as completely out of character. One friend in particular last saw Elizabeth 6 days earlier, but mentioned that Elizabeth called her the day before her death. She said they were planning a girls' trip, and that Elizabeth said that she was fine and in a good place, despite the recent breakup. The same friend said that Elizabeth commented that she felt safe because her ex-boyfriend didn't know where she was.
I just, I'm dumbfounded. I don't understand how something like this could happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we see bizarre things, and I'm sure you've heard lots of stories, and so, there's lots of, and sometimes we don't get all the questions answered just because we didn't witness it, and we don't know what.
I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to make it sound like, I will say this, honestly, what she told me was that she was scared of her boyfriend, but she was scared that, he was going to, shoot her or something if she went and got her stuff, but that she didn't think he knew where she was, and I don't think he did. And so from what I've heard from other people, he, they loved each other, and
paranoid.
Yeah, so that's what I'm starting to think, is that maybe she was just starting to get freaked out or something.
The day after Elizabeth's death, Lizette began to tell people that Elizabeth had slit her own throat and that she watched Elizabeth stab herself repeatedly. Another friend mentions the last time he spoke to and heard from Elizabeth.
I can't remember whether she was texting with you or calling with you or both.
So both.
How long before the 8th on Saturday?
So she called me that morning. It was the last time, and I've been kicking myself in the ass, sir, because she called me at 2:30 in the morning that everything happened, and I didn't answer the phone because I figured at the time I was watching a fucking movie, man. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
I was watching the movie. I figured I could just talk to her later, so I didn't pick up the phone.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't, like I said, I'm sorry about that. I know that she was also reaching out to another gentleman that works at the Cody.
Yeah.
And so she was trying to call. She tried to call Cody a bunch of times and tried to call you. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out if you can help me understand and her family understand when was the last time you spoke with her or saw her prior to that?
So I saw her. The last I saw her was on the 24th.
Okay.
That was the last day I worked. and then I seen her because I ended up catching COVID. So she had called me a few more times. That just called and texted with me, checking on me because I had COVID. That week, though, I talked to her a couple of days prior to her death, and she was telling me she had just broke up with her boyfriend. She was kind of worried about that guy.
Detective Bell also asks him about the type of behavior that Lizette, a.k.a. Kiki, described seeing.
She was very nervous but happy that she had broke up with Dusty. She was kind of worried that he might pop up at Kiki's place or whatever like that, but nothing that indicated that she was going to go ahead and supposedly stab herself, and I do say supposedly stab herself in the abdomen and the neck.
So don't believe everything you're hearing on your... It sounds like you guys have some kind of text thing going on or something, and I can tell you that everything you're hearing in your text is not correct.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I can't talk to you because you're not next to kin specific.
No, I understand.
But I do want. I mean, that all that information is, some of it's correct, but not all of it's correct. And you know, I wasn't there. And nobody was there to actually witness exactly what was happening, and so we don't really know what happened. But and that's why I'm investigating and trying just to figure out what her state of mind might have been, and you know, because what is explaining is it's very very far out random acting behavior. So. Have you ever known Miss Santos to use any type of drug besides prescription or marijuana, anything like that? Hallucinogenic mushrooms or anything?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. I haven't known her to do that. No.
And did she seem?
I kept hearing something about she was off her. All I kept hearing about.
Yeah.
I don't know if she was taking any other prescription meds, and I don't even know help with depression or anything like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't even sound right to me, so.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it, and I'm sorry to bother you, Jim, and I know that's this upsetting.
No, you're fine, boss.
All right.
I've been wondering what's been going on about this anyway because nobody's talking about it. So.
Yeah, you know, and it took us this point. I had to get into her we had to break into her cell phone and usually cell phones are everybody's, you know, you and I's life, so we can figure out exactly what's happening in people's lives. And unfortunately, all I can really figure out in her phone is that evening. She just seemed to be all during the night trying to call. There's 3 or 4
people.
Yeah. So anyhow, I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time, and thank you for talking to me. All right, sir?
Detective Bell called another friend that Elizabeth tried to contact a couple of hours before the stabbing. He says he slept with his phone on silent and woke up to 9 missed calls from her. Detective Bell also asked for his perspective.
That's just what they said. They said that she was like stabbed in the abdomen and then in the neck, and they said they thought it was suicide, but I mean, that was...
Well, don't believe everything you hear in that. I can tell you that information, some of it's not true.
Well, yeah, and that's what I thought. I was like, that seems kind of weird.
Yeah.
Weird way to do that.
And yet another close associate of Elizabeth was contacted as well to gain some additional perspective on the situation.
Any suspicion that you would have of her using any type of drugs besides prescription drugs?
Just marijuana.
Okay, which is legal, so nothing else?
Yeah. Nope, nothing that I'm aware of.
I'm assuming you've heard at least something. You've heard that she's deceased, right?
Yeah, yes I had.
What have you heard?
My ex called me. She had heard something from one of her friends that she had stabbed herself.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, all I know is she had recently broke up with her boyfriend and moved out.
Yeah. Okay.
And she was she lived out with him in the valley for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Since the release of the previous video and petition, more people have contacted the family to inform them of additional versions of events they had heard from Lizette, including one where the fight supposedly began outside in a truck, and another in which the police arrived on the scene, seeing Elizabeth holding a bloody knife while it was still inside her abdominal region. In one version of Lizette's account of events, she told people that it was an adolescent child who was home with her during the fight when she ran to hide in the bathroom to call 911, not an adult son. In another version, Lizette said that Elizabeth was taken out of her home and placed in a squad car, not in an ambulance. Interestingly, during the police canvass, a neighbor mentioned witnessing a disturbance at Lizette's house 2 nights earlier in which a woman matching Lizette's description chased out a man with a truck from the residence. After much delay, Elizabeth's iPhone was eventually released to the family by the Anchorage Police Department in January of 2021. Since the creation of the online petition, additional pushback has come from another so-called friend of Elizabeth that strongly supports the suicide narrative on social media. This same friend told the family in the days following Elizabeth's death that she was on the phone with Lizette during the incident and that Elizabeth did not do this to herself. This same so-called friend had also recently claimed that she was speaking to Elizabeth at 3 a.m. on the day of the incident. After reviewing call logs, we see that that same so-called friend never spoke to Elizabeth that day. All texts sent by Elizabeth that day appeared to be normal, including a text sent around 2 a.m. that night to a friend telling him that she was outside walking her dog. Elizabeth was listening to music and ordering items off of Amazon in the hours before her stabbing. Also within her iPhone is a picture text message conversation with another friend, with Elizabeth mentioning that she was moving a lot of clothing around in Lizette's home because she was helping Lizette clean up her untidy home. Oddly, around 3 a.m., Elizabeth also called and repeatedly texted her ex-boyfriend, begging him to answer the phone. Much resistance has come from the head of the APD's Homicide Division and her superior officers, who insist that the blood-soaked robe that Elizabeth was wearing was actually sweat, despite reports mentioning that it was heavily saturated in blood. More questions than answers. This case was suspended and closed in October of 2020. The head of the Homicide Division, Bianca Cross, stated that there were no signs of a struggle and that they have no suspects. No bloody knife was ever recovered from the scene. At one point in the report, it's mentioned that Elizabeth was outside screaming something about murder. The case was never ruled a homicide, and contrary to popular belief, it was never ruled a suicide either. The clothing, DNA, and fingerprint evidence that was collected by the APD from the suspects on the day of the assault was never analyzed. To date, the APD refuses to do so. In no way is this a desperate attempt by the family to save face in the name of Elizabeth's reputation. They are just left with more questions than answers. Like, who was the man seen leaving Lizette's residence 2 nights earlier in a truck? Why do local journalists in Alaska refuse to write or report this story, despite being contacted and informed about it time and time again? Why not process the DNA evidence? Why not classify it as a suicide? Why has Lizette's story changed around so much? If she has been so inconsistent and dishonest about all of this, how can we trust her account of events that took place before the stabbing and arrival of the patrol officers? What was Elizabeth given? What did Desmond witness or do before the arrival of the patrol officers? And finally, it's evident that there was a fight between Lizette and Elizabeth in which Elizabeth was winning. But who wins a fight, then decides to kill themselves shortly after, especially in that manner? APD case number 20-24631.
Now moving on to deep dive video number 2, which details additional audio and evidence.
Since the release of the first deep dive video, additional evidence has surfaced to help support evident foul play, inconsistencies regarding the investigation, and the suppression of case information from the general public, particularly those still residing in the vicinity from where the incident occurred on Ravenna Street. Unreleased audio. The following audio includes statements from neighbors of Lizette Hogland Hall on the day of Elizabeth Santos' death. All these statements were recorded by the Anchorage PD on August 8, 2020, a few hours after the incident during a neighborhood canvass. Many even mentioned noticing Elizabeth along with her blue truck in the days leading up to the incident, but to this day are completely unaware that they'd be some of the last people to see her alive. Pay close attention to the concern, disbelief, and confusion of each neighbor. especially when they noticed the white homicide van parked on their street.
All I can remember is I know I heard the scream, but I thought it came from on the other backside, and I couldn't tell you what time it was.
Could you tell whether it was a male or female?
No, I couldn't tell you that.
What is your name, sir?
Brian.
BR with a...
Hi.
Last name?
RUTKA.
Hi, ma'am. I'm Detective Elby with APD. I'm just curious if you heard or seen anything this morning.
I didn't see, I heard. Except I thought it was on that side of the house because our bedroom is on that side and the window was on that side. So I woke up because I heard a woman screaming, screeching, screaming. I couldn't say what she was saying. And I got up and it stopped and I was like, okay. I'm like going, was I dreaming that or was that? And then I listened to see if there was anything else and there was nothing else. But that's all I heard was the initial screaming. But she was saying something, but I couldn't hear her say it. I couldn't. It was like it woke me up, so I wasn't really paying attention to exactly what her words were, but it was high-pitched shrieking and indiscernible words. I don't know how to describe it.
And your name, ma'am?
Holly.
Same last name, Rutka?
Yes, sir.
No.
I didn't think of one other thing. I didn't know if it would apply to anything. Because I've been working from home for the last month. The blue truck over there, that lady showed up about a week and a half ago. And I know that the landlord doesn't know anything about it. They didn't know a third person was there. It was just supposed to be the mom and the son is all they knew about.
That helps out a lot.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.
She only said 2 sentences, but she came out screaming, I think. I know there was screaming and just the loudest voice you can ever hear someone put out, like just real loud. Like just scream, something like that.
Do you have any recording devices that might capture the street?
No.
Well, thank you. That sure helps out a lot.
Did someone die?
Yes.
Officer?
Yes.
Was it a woman?
Yes.
Okay, it must be the same. Yeah, I'm like, man, how come nobody come out of the house? How come nobody, pay a little bit more attention? And I don't live here. This is my friend's house. I was just wondering how come nobody come out. So I opened up the blind and it just went quiet. First of all, I didn't even know which house, because usually you would see someone on the street or some, but this case here was, so it was different. But sometimes you hear that and nothing happens.
Yeah. Most of the time, right?
Yeah, most of the time. But when I see the van parking out front.
Yeah, it's not good when you see that van.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's too bad. But I'm pretty sure she was arguing with a boy. Got to be. My guess. My intuition say that something with the boy. But man, I haven't heard somebody scream out of her lungs like that in a long time.
I heard this girl scream on her phone. I was asleep. And I got woken up by her yelling. She was talking on her phone, screaming on her phone. That's all I heard. And then she ran back into her house. I think it was that house over there.
Where was she when you saw her?
In her driveway, or I don't know if that's her driveway. She was on the drive over there.
The house directly south of you?
Yeah.
Have you seen this person before?
Yeah, I've seen her live here, but I haven't talked to her or anything like that. That's about it. No.
But besides that, was there anything else out of the ordinary this morning?
No, I just heard the screaming and I just went back to sleep. That's all.
You said this was somewhere around 6 and...
Around 6 a.m.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for your time.
So is there something we should be worried about with kids over here? Or?
No.
No? Okay.
I do work with the homicide unit, but we feel this incident is isolated. So, and you don't have any cameras pointed towards the south, do you?
No. Yeah, we don't have any cameras, unfortunately. Okay. We do, but not installed. So.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Okay, thank you.
wondering if you heard anything this morning that might have woke you up.
Yeah, my wife heard it. But I sleep very deep. She told me that she heard that somebody scream, and then after that the police. But she's not here right now.
Sure. I may give your wife a call a little later this afternoon just to hear that from her. But,
Yeah, I sleep really deep, but when I wake up for go to work, and she said, "Oh, you heard this morning?" I said, "No, what happened?" She said that another side of the screaming, the woman screaming.
Last name?
Donis.
How do I spell that?
Donis.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Something happened around here?
Yeah, we had a lady die this morning. We're just making sure anybody didn't see or hear anything.
Die over here in this neighborhood?
Yeah, other side of the road here. But if anything comes up, do you have any cameras pointed in that direction?
No, I don't.
How about to the front of your house?
I don't have any cameras there.
Okay.
Like 2 days ago, and there was a Suburban that pulled up.
Okay, what's your name, ma'am?
Cat, K-A-T-T, Sadler, S-A-D-D-L-E-R.
Okay.
Okay, so
4 days ago?
no, 2 days ago,
2 days ago.
at 4 a.m. in the morning, around 4 a.m.
Yeah.
I came out to smoke a cigarette, and there was a truck that had pulled up and dropped off somebody at this location.
Okay.
And he went inside for about maybe 2 to 5 minutes, and then came out, and the girl was screaming at him, and they got in this huge fight, and he jumped back in the truck. And the entire time that he was driving away, they were screaming and throwing stuff at each other.
So they're inside the vehicle together, or they're...
No.
She's
She was
following him
running
down the
after
road.
him. Yeah.
So he gets out in the house for a few minutes.
Yeah. Like literally maybe enough time to take his shoes off.
Woman comes out.
Screaming at him, obscenities.
And then she follows him down the street.
On foot. He's in a truck, and he takes off that way and skirts around that corner so freaking fast that we're gonna flip.
Now, did you hear the yelling last night?
I personally didn't hear the screaming. I heard all the cars pull up.
Okay.
And my man heard the screaming as well.
Okay. Yeah, is he here?
Yeah.
So, he heard the screaming this morning and the screaming 2 days ago?
No, I'm the one who heard the screaming.
Oh, okay. All right.
He was asleep by that time.
Did you see the lady? No, you obviously you saw the lady. What was
Yeah.
the description on her?
Kind of, maybe a little overweight. Taller than me, maybe like 5'7"-ish. And she was in like a, I don't know, like a sleep dress, moo-moo thing with slippers. Because she took one of her slippers off and chucked it at the vehicle.
She threw a slipper at him, huh?
Yeah, at the vehicle, but they were screaming at each other the entire time, so I figured I might bring it up.
How old do you think the lady is?
Oh, maybe mid-30s, early 40s.
White,
Maybe
black,
younger?
native, Hispanic.
White with not super white skin, though. Like maybe she had a tan or something.
Hi, how are you?
I was here, get some stuff done, and I came in early. Came in a couple hours ago. Everything's fine. I come out. I'm like, what's APD doing on our street?
So we're investigating a death.
Oh no.
Happened sometime this morning, but did you see or hear anything in the early hours of the day?
No, because I work so much, and I'm lucky to have 2 days off from DLC.
It's crazy.
No, this is just a good neighborhood, though. It's like we don't have anything going on. It's just odd because I've been on this street for almost 11 years, and I never had anything like this happen. If I hear anything, I definitely will give you guys a call. Because my daughter saw on the news, she's like, called me. She's over at Santos. She said, Mom, is that a what?
Yeah, it's never good to see that van.
The following statement is from a neighbor that lives only 2 houses down from Lizette.
Hey, hi, come here. Yeah, there was a real loud holler we heard this morning.
Okay. About what time? She'll know about the exact time, but it was pretty early.
And your name, sir?
Britt Marsh.
What's going on?
Hey, what did you hear this morning, hon? Exactly. And what time?
I
Do you remember?
It was right around 6 o'clock. The only thing I can't say 100%, but I thought I heard, "Go ahead and do it." That's all I remember.
Do you know if it was a male or female?
It was a female saying it. She was yelling at the top of her lungs. Someone die.
Yeah.
Oh.
We had that
I'm
feeling.
sick from that.
Anytime we see y'all show up with that big thing there, we know
Did a
something.
female die?
Yeah. I don't know.
But listen, I'm sure it would have been the same result regardless.
Oh yeah. No. So she was worried about that. Too,
I was.
about
I woke
falling
up
down.
and said,
She's like,
"Hear that?" He
"Britt."
goes, "No." And stop, Seamus. And that was the only thing I heard was that.
Because the police were here,
Immediately?
Yeah, that's what I seen.
Oh,
that
God,
job
I'm sick, really?
Did you recognize the voice belonging to any person?
No, well, I don't know my neighbors at all, except for Tony across the street and Lydia right here. That's it.
Ma'am, what is your name?
Chris. K-R-I-S. Brandon. B-R-A-N-D-O-N.
The 911 call. The 911 emergency call was placed around 6 a.m. Keep in mind that Lizette claimed that she and her son Desmond Hall hid in a bathroom to call 911, and that Elizabeth had been loudly banging on the bathroom door.
Is she banging on the doors, trying to open the door?
It felt like she was about to bust open the doors, right?
Okay, so it was like loud bangs trying to get in?
Yeah, like boom, boom.
But, as you can hear for yourself, there is no banging.
Okay, is it just you and her inside the residence, or is there somebody else there too?
No, my son is here too.
How old is your son?
He's 22.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to get officers out as soon as we can.
Also, something that should be mentioned is that Lizette lives in a duplex, and her next-door neighbor, that she shares a wall with, did not recall hearing any noise around that time either. She did, however, mention hearing banging noises around 3 a.m.
So what did you notice?
So during the night, so her friend stayed the night last night, and so my daughter's room is right here, and then my partner who lives there too, his daughters are not here, but their room is right on connecting to that wall. And so the girls were up late last night, and then Micaiah said she can tell you this, but she heard thumping. But then we did talk about it because I thought the girls came up. I thought her friend Sarah came up and slept on the couch because she was going to stay in the little girl's room. And so I just asked Micaiah that. I'm like, did Sarah come upstairs? And so I did hear some thumping on that wall up there as well.
You did too?
Yeah, we both heard noises.
About what time?
About 3:30, maybe 4.
Did you hear any talking or anything?
No, I can't really hear too much. I'll hear occasionally music and then mostly just thumping on those walls.
So just music and thumping, mainly?
I didn't hear music last night, though.
Just thumping?
Yeah.
Did you hear anything else or see anything?
Not that I remember.
It seemed like it was all inside, or was it partially outside, or?
Inside for sure. And we didn't hear any of the ambulance or anything like that. But one note I wanted to make, and the blue truck though, we've only noticed show up in the last week or so. And we didn't recognize the gal that had it. So, I mean, we hear noises during the night. I'm a light sleeper, so I would hear noises anyway. So it didn't really seem anything out of the ordinary, to be honest.
Additional evidence. To further add to this, a recent conversation between Desmond Hall and a private investigator also confirms that Elizabeth did not stab herself.
Like, I saw glances of her outside the bathroom. She approached me butt naked as I was coming out of the bathroom, talking about how much she loved me, and I practically ignored her. I did ignore her.
Wow. Was she coming out of the bathroom, or you were coming out of the bathroom?
I was coming out of the bathroom.
And that was just during the time that she stayed with you and your mother, is that correct?
Yes.
And would that be on the same day that Elizabeth passed away?
It was pretty close. It was like, yeah.
Okay.
It must have been like 2 a.m., 1 a.m.
Sure.
But technically the same day.
And
either that or barely the day before.
Did Elizabeth ever mention the traumatic incident that happened with her boyfriend, or I guess ex-boyfriend, you could call him?
No, she didn't.
Okay. And Desmond, how are you taking all this? How's this been affecting your life?
Well, I mean, I know it's been very stressful on my mom, and I know that she's had issues with the family, and it's like hard for me to know that like all that chaos happened in our home. Like she might have like died at the hospital or on the way there, but still like it's almost like, I don't know, there's a ghost in our home now.
So maybe you could walk me through.
If me and her are guilty of something, it's that we didn't hide the knives from her. And at some point, she cut herself. I couldn't tell where she cut herself or how deep. It didn't seem too bad. There wasn't much blood, but right before she got taken away, and right before we called the police, she was in the kitchen and grabbed a knife, and I didn't see her grab the knife. I didn't see her cutting herself.
And from what I understand, there was some kind of physical altercation between Elizabeth and your mother. Is that correct? Did you see any of that, or did you hear that, or how did that come about to your knowledge?
I heard it. I didn't see it. I don't know what happened there.
Okay.
I imagine it was something minor. I didn't see any marks on Elizabeth or my mom from a physical conflict, if there was one. Okay. I know that there was some shouting going on.
I understand. And so I imagine when you emerged from your room, hearing the commotion, there was some damage in the house as well. Is that correct?
No, not really. Nothing that I could tell.
There was no damage, no sort of signs of a struggle or tussle or anything.
No, if there was a physical conflict, it was probably just like a minor slap or scratch, or a slap back or a scratch. Nothing like really major. They weren't like fist fighting. They weren't like wrestling or anything like that.
After further review of the crime scene photos, it was determined that there was actually a fourth knife found on the scene that was never mentioned in the police report. This knife was found in the garage, only a few feet from where Lizette said the fight between her and Elizabeth occurred. Further pushback and suppression of the incident. The Santos family has also attempted to gain police dashcam footage of the APD patrol officers Tayoun and Valeria Estrella's initial arrival at Lizette's home. But the APD claimed that this footage does not exist. Based on jurisdictional restrictions, only an attorney licensed in Alaska can help the Santos family fight for justice. However, some local public figures and politicians in the state have tried to assist them, but their respective pleas have fallen on deaf ears. To date, the family and their countless supporters have reached out to various law firms in Alaska, the State Bar Association, the Alaska Bureau of Investigations, the ACLU, and countless reporters, including the only reporter who wrote about the incident, Marlise Irby of KTUU. Their pleas for assistance have been ignored constantly, and reporter Marlise Irby eventually left the station without ever replying to requests to update her article. Other reporters in Anchorage have interviewed the family and promised to release the story, but never have. The head of APD's homicide unit, Bianca Cross, and her superior officers still insist that the blood-soaked open robe that Elizabeth was wearing was actually soaked in sweat. Based on police reports, Lizette claims that the only substance she gave Elizabeth in the hours leading up to her death was 4 Benadryl pills. However, the substance detected in the toxicology report was midazolam, a drug used to treat seizures, although Elizabeth did not suffer from epilepsy. The APD continues to claim that there were no signs of a struggle and that they have no suspects. To date, the APD refuses to process any of the collected forensic information collected on the day of the incident. So, in essence, they are supporting the idea that after winning a fight, Elizabeth somehow stabbed herself multiple times with multiple knives while banging on a locked door and had time to neatly clean each one and place them all in different locations before the officers arrived on the scene. To date, everyone supporting the fight for justice, it's still left wondering why it's so important for the APD to disregard this case and for their local news to ignore the incident.
Since these two videos were made, a reporter from the Anchorage Daily News wrote to Elizabeth's younger brother in August 2022 saying that they would like to cover the story. When the journalist began looking into events of that day, they allegedly got pushback from the Anchorage Police Department and basically stopped communicating with the family. This all just leaves us with so many questions. Why didn't this reporter pursue the story? Why aren't there more journalists investigating this further? Her family feel strongly that this is some kind of cover-up. But why? Why wasn't the house treated as a crime scene once the police knew that Elizabeth had been stabbed? If Elizabeth had stabbed herself, why wasn't there more blood in the house? Why were the knives cleaned and clothes changed? There are so many questions, but so few answers. If you would like to help with this case, there is a change.org petition called Justice for Elizabeth Santos, brackets, Alaska, close brackets, which you could sign and share with others. If you have your own YouTube channel and are able to do a community post to share the details of this case to a wider audience, that would be a great help. If you have any contacts with any big YouTube channels, please ask them if they would look into featuring the case to get more coverage. They can either contact me and I will pass the details to them, or email direct to justiceforelizabeth@hotmail.com. The case number for this story is APD case number 20-24631. The Anchorage Police Department has a strapline on their work vehicles that says, "Courage to make a difference." I would suggest that if anyone knows anything that could help this family and their search for justice, to do just that. Finally, there is also a YouTube channel called Justice for Elizabeth Santos, where you can see the original videos along with the footage of Desmond Marcus Hall being taken to the police station. Thank you for watching today's video. Please add any comments down below, and there won't be a post message today. Thank you for listening to The Crime Reel. Stay safe. Goodbye.